If you were to wrap up an important message for someone, what would be the final thing you want them to take away? What would be the lasting memory, the lasting message you would really want them to get? Well, in today's 128 moment, we get some insight into what the Apostle Paul wanted for the church in Thessalonica. As he ends his second letter to the Thessalonian church, he leaves them with this, and he pronounces in verse 16, he says, "Now may the Lord of peace himself give you peace at all times and in every way. The Lord be with all of you." What does Paul desire for them? What he wants them to have and to take away is the peace of God. Now, something I struggle with is that we know in our society today, there's so much unrest and lack of peace. Things like anxiety and pressure and stress, they're at all-time high. But just being honest, I feel that, but also when I look back to who Paul is writing to, these people, they have a right to be stressed out. They have a right to be anxious because they're being persecuted against. Many of them had to leave their families once they pronounced faith in Christ. That this church community is what they hold on to. And Paul pronounces to these people peace. And for me, I just look at my own life and the things that stress me out, and it seems to pale in comparison to what this early church is walking through. Now, there's a whole another 128 moment of why we do struggle with such anxiety in our life today, but the reality is I know that we feel it, and I know that you feel stress and anxiety, and today I want to examine what it looks like for us to live out that peace that Paul has for us. And I just have two things and one just big statement idea, which is that you and I are called to live in peace, and ultimately that peace is going to be found in the presence of God. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing I want us to look at is, what do we consume? I think a big reason why so many of us have stress and anxiety is based off of what we're inputting into our life. That when we're inputting a lot more news and social media into our life, I'll even talk about the movies and TV shows. Honestly, I do not understand some of the TV shows that my Christian friends will watch. I don't want to be judgmental, but I don't know how you can input that into your life and then not be stressed out or not be allowing strongholds for evil and things that we don't want to follow. I don't want to be the legalistic person here, but I think we should have an honest view, and I would challenge you to have an honest view is the things that you're inputting regularly into your life. Do they bring you peace, or instead are they giving you anxiety and stress? I know this last week has been crazy on social media after the Supreme Court decision. Everyone has to share their opinion. And I would just challenge us to view the world less in a aggravated, argumentative stance, and instead view the world on the spiritual battlefield that we live in. Instead of getting mad at other people, we should be in prayer. And certainly, hey, I've been mad, I've been frustrated recently at the stuff. But ultimately, if we allow that to drag us down and consume us instead of the presence of God, we're going to be living not in His peace, and instead we're going to be constantly living in this stress. So what are you inputting into your life? And then the other thing I would say is, what are we doing that adds stress? Certainly we have good stressors in our life, like I feel the stress and anxiety of being a husband or being a father or having a job, a good life, just like we all do. Those are good stressors in our life that come with responsibility. But there's also other things that stress us out that I think are a result of us living for our own purposes and our own will versus abiding in God's presence and also following Jesus and serving others. I would bet this, that if you and I were living more on mission, putting others before ourselves, we would have more peace in our life. So I would call us to analyze those two things in our life, and you to analyze that in your life today. What are you inputting, and then what are you doing? Let's be inputting more of God's presence, and let's be doing more of following Jesus. And I believe that we'll experience much more peace when we do that, because ultimately our peace is found in His presence.